There's something deeply unsettling about old maps, not because they're inaccurate, but because sometimes they're too accurate. Centuries before satellites, before sonar, before modern ships, ancient mapmakers drew coastlines, islands, and landmasses that according to modern geography shouldn't exist anymore. Not because they were wrong, but because the ocean wasn't where it is today. Tonight, we're not talking about lost cities. We're talking about something more subtle, and possibly more disturbing. Ancient maps that show lands the ocean now covers, and the uncomfortable question they leave behind. How did they know? How ancient maps were supposed to work. Before we talk about the maps themselves, we need to understand something important. Ancient mapmakers weren't guessing. Maps were survival tools. They guided trade routes, migrations, wars, and exploration. A wrong coastline could mean shipwreck, starvation, or death. So when a landmass appeared on a map, it usually meant one of three things. Someone had seen it, someone had sailed past it, or someone had inherited knowledge from an older source. Many ancient maps weren't created from scratch. They were copies of copies, sometimes of civilizations long gone. And this is where the problem begins. The maps that shouldn't exist. One of the strangest patterns historians noticed is this: certain ancient maps show coastlines that don't match today's oceans, but do match what the coastlines would look like if sea levels were lower, thousands of years lower. They show realistic coastlines, bays, rivers, and mountain outlines. In other words, land that looks flooded, not imagined. The Piri Reis map 1513 in 1513, an Ottoman admiral named Piri Reis created a world map. At first glance, it looks normal. But when modern scientists analyzed it centuries later, something strange appeared. Parts of the map show the coastline of South America with shocking accuracy, far better than European maps from the same period. But the real mystery lies further south. Some researchers believe the map depicts a landmass beneath Antarctic ice drawn as if the ice wasn't there. Now here's the problem. Antarctica has been ice-covered for at least 6,000 years, possibly much longer. So the question isn't whether the map is accurate. The question is, where did Piri Reis get his source material? Because he himself wrote that he copied from much older maps. Maps that shouldn't have existed. The Doggerland problem. Let's move away from maps for a moment. Between modern-day Britain and mainland Europe, there is now an ocean floor called Doggerland. But thousands of years ago, Doggerland wasn't underwater. It was a massive land bridge. Forests, rivers, animals, human settlements. When sea levels rose after the last ice age, Doggerland slowly vanished beneath the North Sea. Here's what's unsettling. Ancient European legends describe a sunken land in this exact region. Fishing nets today still pull up tools, bones, and artifacts from the seabed. But even more strangely, some medieval maps hint at coastlines that only make sense if Doggerland still existed. Not myths, not stories, but geographic memory. Maps as memory, not imagination. Modern people assume ancient maps were crude guesses. But what if they were something else? What if maps weren't just drawings, but records of remembered geography? Civilizations pass down stories, yes, but they also pass down measurements, routes, distances. If a coastline changed slowly over generations, people wouldn't notice it disappearing all at once. They would remember it, and they would draw it. The sunken coasts of Southeast Asia during the last ice age, sea levels were over 120 meters lower than today. This exposed a massive landmass called Sundaland, connecting modern Indonesia, Malaysia, and Southeast Asia. Ancient trade routes described in early Asian texts make no sense with today's oceans. But when you overlay those descriptions onto Ice Age coastlines, suddenly everything fits. Ports align, distances make sense, journeys become logical. Some ancient regional maps hint at coastlines that match Sundaland, not the modern sea, meaning the memory of this land survived long after it drowned. Why this makes historians uncomfortable? This topic isn't rejected because it's impossible. It's uncomfortable because of what it implies. If ancient maps preserve knowledge of flooded lands, then sea level rise erased more history than we admit. Coastal civilizations may be far older than believed. Human knowledge didn't reset as cleanly as textbooks suggest. It suggests continuity where we expect collapse. And history doesn't like continuity that can't be neatly dated. Were these civilizations coastal? Here's something modern people forget. Early civilizations weren't obsessed with inland cities. They followed water, rivers, shores, estuaries, which also means They were the first to disappear when oceans rose. Stone survives inland. Wood, boats, and coastal structures do not. If entire coastal cultures vanished beneath rising seas, what would remain? Maps, stories, fragments of memory. The ocean is a historical eraser. The ocean doesn't destroy loudly. It erases quietly. A few centimeters per year. A shoreline lost in a lifetime. A village gone over generations. By the time writing appears, the land is already gone. So later civilizations inherit legends, routes, and outlines, but not the cities themselves. To them, it feels like myth. To us, it feels impossible. WHAT modern technology is finding now. Only recently have we had tools to test these ideas. Underwater sonar mapping has revealed ancient riverbeds under the ocean, drowned coastlines, matching ice age geography structures that align with former shorelines, not proof of lost empires, but proof that land existed where water now dominates. And ancient maps seem to remember it. Why these maps still matter? These maps don't tell us what was lost. They tell us that something was. They act like fingerprints left behind by geography itself. Not fantasy, not myth, but memory. Memory drawn in ink. The final question here is the question that matters most. If ancient people preserved knowledge of drowned lands, what else did they know that we've dismissed? And how much human history is currently sitting underwater, not discovered, but forgotten? The ocean doesn't just hide mysteries. Sometimes it hides our own past. We often think of history as something buried underground, but much of it isn't buried. It's submerged, and as sea levels continue to rise again today, we may be repeating the same cycle, creating future maps that remember places we no longer can. The ocean has erased before, and it's very patient.